What's going on YouTube? My name is Simon Snipe and welcome back to the channel. I have to confess that trying to make a guide for this boss was super challenging. The fact that all counters suffer a damage on time effect, decreasing 15% HP per second is just batshit ridiculous. Theoretically, most counters will not survive longer than 8 in-game seconds. What? Here's a quick recap for Nervier. Nervier is a ranger class boss who summons 3 different adds throughout the fight. A sniper that is entrenched in front of her, a floating purple crystal that reduces all ground unit hit by 90%, and 3 smaller adds that constantly move towards your ship. The boss's special skill sends spikes in front of her, dealing some damage and briefly knocking up your units in the front. As for her ultimate skill, she creates an explosion where she stands, knocking up and damaging anyone within its range. She has a unique mechanic where she pushes all your ground units nearby all the way to the back of your ship when she approaches around 70% HP. Before we go any further with this guide, it is imperative to set a new baseline, or expectation for this boss. After extensive testing, I conclude that it is impossible to kill the boss with the current season's debuff. I base this on the fact that in previous seasons the units needed to kill or score on the boss is quite specific, and this season we cannot use any of that. With that said, this guide's objective is to use what I think are the most reliable units at our disposal and dealing as much damage as we can to the boss. Please be reminded that if you are looking for a boss kill, you are not watching the right video. You have been warned. There are a few units that work exceptionally well in this season, and these units are Janus, which is going to be your top damage dealer hands down this season, Kang So-young for dealing damage to snipers and the boss, Sigma, which is not affected by the debuff, gives roll advantage buffs and summons a free tank. Woodpecker, surprisingly, is free from damage until it reaches the boss. Veronica is a soldier unit that lasts significantly longer than any of the units you have on the field. Thunderbolt just because he's a mech and does some damage. Overflow, incredibly solid frontline. Ifrit has high DPS output. Tarask has consistent debuffing. Ironside if let's say majority of your team are mechs. John Mason for buffing mechs and also summoning a CO if left alive long enough. Admin Shieldman is a cheap 2 cost tank, and Admin Sword Fighter, which are incredibly sticky 3 cost units. Instead of a specific strategy for this guide, we will instead adopt a deployment priority since how each of these units perform is completely unique to each person's account. Your top priority units are always to have a frontline taking hits. Units like Veronica, Admin Shieldman, Admin Sword Fighter, or Overflow are amazing choices as your leading unit. Once you have a frontline established, you want to deploy Sigma as soon as possible to get her ultimate charging up. After that, your next priority is to have Janus on the field and make sure he is redeployed should he transform into a defender. From this point on, you may drop whichever units you have in your team while trying to keep cycling through units to keep your frontline up as long as possible. A few tips I like to recommend which I discovered to work quite well is number 1, Woodpecker, Kang So-young and Veronica are a great combination to deal with the sniper and helping your team push towards the boss. Number 2, Kang So-young does a surprisingly high amount of damage to the boss and sniper due to the faction buff. So much so that it is significant enough to justify you spamming her if you actually want to. Number 3, John Mason's mech buff and CO summoning helps a lot pushing towards the boss and increasing the damage that Janus does. Number 4, your ground units will not do much damage until the floating purple crystal dies, so prioritize killing that one first. As far as gears are concerned, I believe majority of us playing in counter-side are more invested into counter gears, and it really hits us hard when we need to rely on soldiers and mechs. Therefore, you want to stack as much anti-ground or anti-ranger damage to push your score higher as whenever you can touch the boss. As far as tanks are concerned, anti-ground damage resistance and anti-range damage resistance are great in keeping the sniper from one-shotting you too quickly. For ships, Enterprise will be your best friend. Although it does not actually buff Soldier on its passive, but the first skill allows you to land more hits when the purple crystal is alive. That is all I could cook up after trying it for hours on end yesterday. It may not be much of a guide, but I've done my best, and seeing how most top 100 players are also struggling, if you manage to kill the boss and have found a sound strategy, please let me know on Discord so that I can share it with everyone else. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.